Hello and welcome back to the Jet Press Podcast. My name is Justin Fried, and I'm joined, as always, by my good friend, Mike Luciano. Mike, we got a big show planned. It is the, I guess, sort of Halloween edition of our midweek show. We are talking Jets trade deadline. We're previewing the Texans. We're talking Rex Ryan. Might even be trying a little bit of cayenne pepper water, courtesy of, that's Aaron Rodgers' new magical drink. All those questions will be answered. We'll talk about it all. Mike, how are you feeling today, buddy?
Well, I'm feeling pretty good because we have a milestone. Thank you, guys. We hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Thank you to every single one of you guys because we could not do this show without you. You guys are the lifeblood of this, and now we got 1,000 of you all together at once. That's a huge accomplishment, not just for us, but for all you guys to really just make this community what it is. We are incredibly thankful for 1,000 subs, and to celebrate, what we're doing is we're launching a little membership. So you see on YouTube where it says that subscribe button, which you should still do if you have not subscribed. You want to keep climbing. Next to it should say join. If you want to click that join button, it'll ask you for only 99 cents a month. And with that, you'll get a little loyalty badge next to your name in the chat, and your comments during all these live streams are going to go straight to the top. So you guys get priority for the 99 cent a month membership. We just wanted to give that out there as a little bit of a testing the waters a little bit, but we think that this community is passionate enough where we're going to have tons of you guys in those live streams like we always do. Before we get into that, though, before we get into our stream, which has a ton of stuff, we got news, we got trade deadline talk, we got Rex Ryan talk somehow. What a year already. Week 9 of the Super Bowl year, Rex Ryan talk. And we got Texans talk. Justin is going to do a little bit of jet press in the name of science. He currently, because Aaron Rodgers' new fountain of youth drink is cayenne pepper and water, according to Thomas Morrison. That's his new. It sounds almost like what an old-timey, Old West salesman would say. Like, here's my magic elixir, and it would cure all your ailments. It's cayenne pepper and water. So Justin has prepared some of it. If you would like to show your audience, it is bright orange. It looks like pizza grease. It is room temperature. So we'll see how good this is. Apparently, it's supposed to take your pain away. So Justin, ready to go down the hatch with that thing?
So I mean, you kind of set it up there, but I feel like I'm being sold on some snake oil here. I feel like this is not going to do what it's supposed to do. But Thomas Morrison's a friend of the show. We've had some great conversations, and I feel like, I just got to trust him on this one, right? Aaron Rodgers, known for his love of alternative medicine. This is his latest addition to his long line of alternative medicine. First of all, by the way, shout out Brian saying attempting to join this from an actual jet plane right now. Much appreciated, my friend.
If you're paying for in-flight Wi-Fi for this, we are extremely thankful.
Much appreciated. And yeah, again, also thank you everybody before I down this. Thank you everybody for 1,000 subscribers. In celebration of us hitting 1,000 subscribers. Just thank you to everybody who has tuned in, who has watched us, who's subscribed at all. As Mike mentioned, I mean, if you wanted to just help us out in any way at all, 99 cents a month would be so much appreciated. But even just tuning in and watching and liking and engaging in any way, we really, really do appreciate it. With that being said, I think it's time, Mike. I have not tried this, by the way.
This is either going to taste like regular water or it's going to make you throw up.
No, it's not. Well, I hope the latter doesn't happen. I don't have a bucket.
See. All right, here we go.
All right. I have not tried this yet, full disclosure. I have smelled it, and it smells really bad. I don't know. For audio listeners can't see, but for those who, I don't know if you can see somebody watching this right now. It is all, like, settling on the top. I've tried to, like, mix it, and I was stirring it for a good 3 minutes, and it is just not mixed. It's not dissolving.
It's like when you make that like Gatorade powder.
Yes. Yeah, it's just not dissolving. So it's just a bunch of cayenne pepper sitting at the top of water. All right, before it gets even, it's supposed to be warm. Before it gets less warm, I'm gonna try it. Ready, Mike? Give me like a little bit of a countdown or something.
Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Down the hatch.
Oh, dude, no.
How bad is it?
It's just a bunch of like, oh my God. It's like, no, I'm not going to throw up. It's just like a bunch of warm spice in my throat. Don't quote that. Don't.
Yeah, it's cayenne pepper.
Nobody pause. Nobody cut that.
Oh no.
That's awful. Okay.
Oh, God.
I think, though, if I had like a stuffy nose right now, oh my God, excuse me. If I had a stuffy nose right now,
That
I think
cleans
it
that
would.
clears you out.
Yeah, I think that would kind of clear my my sinuses. Now I'm going to leave that right there, and I'm not going to touch it again. But that, you know
You
what?
think you mixed it improperly, Justin?
I don't think this is user error. I think this is just a bad decision. But I look, we're Jets fans. We gotta support our team, and this is how we did it. And again, this is a thank you to everybody for subscribing and tuning
Thank
in.
you to AJ too. Just became a member. Thank you, AJ.
Oh, so much appreciated. Thank you so much, AJ.
And now, if more of you guys want to become members, remember, hit that join button. You can also find us on YouTube at the Jet Press. You can subscribe there. And for the audio guys, we're on Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. We are there. You can download us there. Make sure you give us a 5-star review. Again, just to bump us up the Google algorithm and the Apple algorithm, not for ego reasons. That's how you can support the show and make Justin do more stupid things like clear out his sinuses with cayenne water.
Dude, if we get another, I don't know, can we keep track of memberships during the show? Because I was gonna say, if we get a couple more memberships, I'll take another sip.
All right, yeah. If we get 5 new members in the show,
I'll take another sip, and by
Justin
the end of
will
the show,
take a bigger sip.
I'll take a bigger sip, and if it's by the end of the show, it'll probably be colder, which I think that'll make it worse.
Or it'll be room temperature.
Yeah, it's getting close to. I made this I made this concoction like, I don't know, 20 minutes before we went live, so it's had some time to cool down. But yeah, that wasn't great. But thank you so much, AJ, for becoming a member.
You know what else isn't great is the Jets kicking situation.
That's
Because here's what pisses me off about the Jets kicking situation. Because they did sign 2 guys. One of them being Riley Patterson, who I think of the 2 is the favorite to, I think, be the kicker on Thursday against the Houston Texans. So they worked out 6 guys. They ended up signing Patterson and Spencer Schrader. Patterson is the one with more NFL experience. Schrader was a college guy over at I believe South Florida was the big one there. The thing that pisses me off about what the Jets are doing right now is we've been screaming until we're blue in the face for accountability. And I'll believe that Greg Zuerlein maybe has something wrong physically. This totally just seems like Woody doesn't have to eat money by cutting Greg Zuerlein, and they don't have to embarrass him by cutting him in the middle of the year. This is like when a pitcher is struggling and they have a 7 ERA, and they go to the manager and they go, "Your shoulder hurts, right? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Your shoulder really hurts. You should go to AAA for a little bit." I feel like that's almost what's happening right now. So because of that, it kind of stinks because it still doesn't feel like the Jets are operating the right way. If they were operating the right way, injury or not, I feel like Zuerlein is gone. Because that's what would happen if a guy was underperforming to that degree. Instead, he might be back. We don't know if they're going to bring him, but he might still be there. It might be week 12. He might still be the kicker. And I know not to harp on kicker news like it's the be-all, end-all, but for crying out loud, Justin, I mean, they've lost at minimum 2 games based only on kicking, possibly 3. I mean, this is – I get you can't get rid of quarterbacks who are underperforming. You can't get rid of, receivers that are dropping passes. Kickers are the most disposable, but them and punters are incredibly disposable, and they can't even get rid of him.
A competent organization would have made a kicker change weeks ago. After, I mean, I think at a bare minimum after the Bills game, or at least, honestly, at halftime in that Bills game, just don't even throw out Greg Zuerlein there anymore because clearly it wasn't working. But a competent organization would have made a change earlier. Unfortunately, the Jets are in a position now where the guy running the show, Joe Douglas, hasn't realistically been running the show in weeks. I mean, he was overruled with the Robert Saleh firing. That was a Woody Johnson decision. And really, since that decision was made, it's very clearly not been Joe Douglas that's been the one running everything. Woody Johnson took charge in the Hassan Reddick situation. He was a big reason that the Jets traded for Devontae Adams. So when you have a general manager who is, I mean, let's call a spade a spade. He's a figurehead at this stage. Joe Douglas is a figurehead. He is coasting for the rest of the season. They have an interim head coach who is in over his head because he's being asked to do a million different things. The kicking situation wasn't going to get fixed because that just wasn't a priority for the organization, for the team. That's just the state of the team at the moment. As for why they're making or why they're not moving on fully from Zuerlein at this stage, look, I'm not going to be anyone that's I'm not going to outright say that they're faking an injury here, but I would like to point out that he was not on the injury report on Monday. The Jets did not practice on Monday. And then all of a sudden, he's mysteriously added to the injury report on Tuesday.
With a knee, something he needs for kicking. Isn't that odd?
Right, with a knee injury, not to his kicking leg, but to his plant leg. Now, I don't know if Greg Zuerlein banged his knee at home. I don't know if he tweaked his knee walking into the team facility on Tuesday, but clearly something happened that the Jets felt the need to add him to the injury report on Tuesday and then suddenly place him on injured reserve on Wednesday. So again, I'm not accusing them of faking an injury, but I'd just like to point that out. They will be rolling with either Riley Patterson or Spencer Schrader for the next 4 weeks because Zuerlein is out. That includes a bye, so it'll be 3 games, I believe, that Zuerlein is forced to miss. Like you said, Mike, I wouldn't be shocked if Zuerlein is back at some point this season because the fact of the matter is the Jets gave Greg Zuerlein a 2-year extension this offseason. They gave him $4.2 million in guarantees on that extension. If they were to cut him now, I believe they would owe him just right around $3 million still.
Oh, no, not that. On an NFL salary cap,
right.
$3 million.
I think Woody Johnson is looking at that and making a decision to keep him because Zuerlein, I mean, honestly, was a great player last year. The best season of any Jets kicker in franchise history. He was incredible last year. So I think this is very clearly a Woody Johnson decision of not wanting to eat that dead money and hoping that a few weeks to get healthy, can be enough for Greg Zuerlein to kind of get his mind right and bounce back. I don't think that's going to work, but realistically, the Jets are 2-6 and they're not making the playoffs anyway, most likely at this stage. But yeah, a competent organization makes this switch when it actually would have mattered. Now it doesn't matter. They're bringing in Riley Patterson, Spencer Schrader, sure, whatever. But yeah, if you're wondering why Greg Zuerlein is still under contract with the Jets, it is very likely a Woody Johnson decision. It is very likely finances related.
AJ, our member here, how did he go from being such a great kicker in 2023 to this? Either age, because he is older and sometimes you just lose it, or he's just got the yips.
Kickers are weird.
He's Mackie Sasser, he's Steve Sachs, he's Rick Ankiel. He just can't throw strikes anymore.
Kickers are relief pitchers. They are the relief pitchers of the NFL. They 1 year they can be great, 1 year they can be terrible. I mean, before the Jets got Greg Zuerlein, it's not like he was the best kicker in the league, and then within 2 years he was great. Austin Seibert was out of football a year ago, and now he's the best kicker in the NFL this year.
And the Jets could probably cut Zuerlein. He could sign somewhere next year and be good. That's just how it works. The problem then becomes you can't keep going back to him. Thinking, he's eventually going to figure it out. Like, I can remember the Vikings. I remember this maybe came back to bottom. They took Daniel Carlson, I remember, in the 5th round. They cut him after 2 games. He missed some kicks. Younghoe Koo got caught after, 3 games with the Chargers. You can't keep saying, well, eventually he's going to figure it out. How many games do you have to lose until he figures it out?
Dude, Jason Myers.
You can't take that risk. The Jets have, though, and they lost 3 games because of it.
Jason Myers, before the Jets got him, was terrible with the Jags. He had an awful year. He goes to the Jets.
Jason Myers was bad at Marist College. Shout out Red Foxes, who went out 0-8 in football, by the way. His last year there, I believe he went 4 of 10 in field goals.
Oh, my goodness. How did he get an NFL job?
He went to the Arena League, I think, and then kicked there, and then got a tryout.
But it's just bizarre because he wasn't great with the Jags, or at least his last year. The Jets pick him up. He has an amazing season. They let him walk, and he's still been a pretty competent kicker for years now at Seattle. Kickers are weird. Kickers are just bizarre, and there's really no rhyme or reason to the position most of the time. You just need to make a decision to move on when the time is to move on. At this point, the Jets have made that decision, but it's probably too late.
One coach they have moved on for, I should say, was a college player, I guess, back in the day, was Rex Ryan. And I know it started off as a meme, I think, or just kind of a joke, bring Rex back. Rex Ryan has basically said, I would love to coach the Jets again. A lot of Jets fans are pining for the days when Rex was here. Even some outside observers were like, if they're not going to bring in Rex Ryan, at least bring in somebody close to it, because he's not going to come back as a coordinator. And you know what? He's a hot name around the Jets. Here's our take on it. They're not going to bring back Right. That would be like a Jeff Saturday thing with the Colts. It would be almost cartoonish.
Yeah.
However, when the Jets are hiring their next coach, whether it be a coordinator, because again, Rex was not a head coach before he came to the Jets, be it a coordinator, somebody with past experience, they need to find a guy like Rex Ryan. Not a defensive coach necessarily, but somebody who, to borrow a phrase from another Jets podcast, has a high give-a-shit meter. Rex Ryan cares. And Rex Ryan, like him or not, has a style that he wants to play. I feel like one of the problems with the Jets in the last couple of years is they've lacked identity for so long. The only identity that they've had in the last decade has been, honestly, the last 2 years when the identity has been Aaron Rodgers. That's the only time that they've had any semblance of here's what the Jets are. Todd Bowles, what were the Todd Bowles Jets? Describe the Todd Bowles Jets.
Passive.
Passive. Adam Gase, forget about it. And Robert Saleh, the only thing they had going for him was, they had it's a good defensive players, but they never got an offensive identity.
Saleh was Todd Bowles with better PR. Like, he was Todd Bowles with a brand. He had the all gas, no break. Like, that was his
and then
thing.
they were never all gas, no break.
They weren't, but he had that mantra, and he was louder than Todd Bowles.
And at least Todd Bowles said, like, well, we're just going to go 45 and a 50 and obey all the posted signs here. That was Todd Bowles. Rex said, even if I lose, I'm going to lose this way, which I kind of respect. And you know what? Everybody bought in.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you like Saleh or not, I think we liked Saleh more than most because a lot of the things that we think went wrong in New York, a lot of them he wasn't the primary reason for it. Rodgers' injury, external stuff, Zach Wilson, like a lot of stuff went beyond him. But when you look at Rex, man, like you could tell he had something that Saleh didn't. And it's hard to quantify. But, man, the Jets need a guy like him so bad. I don't know about Rex specifically, but if they're hiring their next coach, say, all right, the only thing that we've had in the last 20 or 15 years that's worked was Rex. Where's our next guy?
Yeah, I mean, let's get this out of the way first. Rex Ryan cannot, should not, will not be the Jets head coach in 2025 under any circumstances, should that be the case. I agree with a lot of what you just said. But it's also 2024, and I think some of the fans that are pining for him to return need to realize that Rex Ryan has not had a coaching position in the NFL, not a head coach, a coaching position in a decade. He's been out of coaching for a decade. Since 2015 was his last time as a coach in the NFL. And it's also easy to remember the good times that Rex Ryan had with the Jets. And, those 2009, 2010 teams were fantastic. And like you said, it changed the identity. It formed an identity, and it made the Jets a valuable destination or a respected team, respected organization in a lot of ways. But then it's also very easy to forget how things ended and how poorly things went after that, 2011, 2012, 2013, all the way to his end in 2014. By the end of his time coaching the Jets, and even when he was coaching the Bills, I think Bills fans will be the first ones to tell you this, the NFL had passed Rex Ryan by. Schematically, they had it was beyond him at that stage. And we're talking 10 years ago, the NFL had passed him by. I have zero faith, zero confidence level that Rex Ryan coaching in 2024 is a good idea in any way at all.
Well, it's not schematics, though. Like, honestly, if you look defensively, I don't think Rex was necessarily an innovator schematically defensively.
No.
But what he had, and this will translate era, scheme, coaching, any of that, was he got guys to buy into roles.
I agree. I'm with you.
Robert Saleh didn't.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Outside of a couple guys on defense. Adam Gase certainly did not. Todd Bowles did not.
Yeah,
that's the trait they need. That's why I think Rex looks like a viable option, because he's so different as to what the Jets have had in the last couple of years. And I think it's very clear that a guy like him is what they need again, even if it's not the man himself.
I agree with you. A guy like Rex is what they need. They need a guy, and we talked about this, I think, on the show multiple times now. They need a guy to come in and change the culture. A guy to come in and completely rid the stink that this Jets organization has built upon themselves over the last 14 years since Rex Ryan left. They need someone like that. They need a Bill Parcells. They need a Rex Ryan. They need a culture shifter. They don't need specifically Rex Ryan. Rex Ryan himself in the year 2024 would be an egregious hire, and it would be a laughingstock, for lack of a better term. Honestly, it would be. I would go as far as to say it would be Adam Gase levels bad in terms of a hiring. As a guy who I know is going to come in, he's a cheerleader at this stage, and that's fine. I love Rex. There's a special place in the hearts of most Jets fans for Rex Ryan. That those memories are in the past. That's the past. That's not 2024. They need a guy like Rex, whether that's a Mike Vrabel, whether it's getting Pete Carroll to come in the building, whatever you want to do.
Garrett Goodlander has a good idea. Aaron Glenn.
I would love Aaron Glenn.
Former Jet, current Lions defensive coordinator.
Aaron Glenn's not okay. I'll say that Aaron Glenn's not the top of my list, but I would like Aaron Glenn. There's very few options I think that are realistic that I would hate.
Of guys with no coaching experience, he might be at the top of the list.
Yeah, of guys with no head coaching experience who are defensive guys, I would say he's probably towards the top of my list. I still skew towards hiring an offensive coach. I mean, I forget if we were talking about this, but the last other than Adam Gase, the last offensive-minded head coach the Jets had was?
Was it Al Groh?
It was Rich Kotite. Rich Kotite.
Oh yeah, Groh was a linebackers coach. Yeah, so yeah.
Rich Kotite in 1996 was the last time the Jets hired an offensive coach that was not named Adam Gase. That's insane. That's actually ridiculous. Maybe it's time to go to the other well. And not even that. Like, you are just it's such an advantage if you hit on an offensive coach versus if you hit on a defensive coach. Because you look around the league, you look at the best coaches in the NFL, at least a lot of the, I would say, newer guys. So we're going to, not as much someone like a Mike Tomlin, who's just a CEO who's been there for 15 years or whatever at this point. I mean, looking at the Sean McVays, the Kyle Shanahans, the Andy Reids, whoever, Matt LaFleur. The advantage of having a coach like that is their scheme is going to stay there. They're not going to, you don't have to worry about an offensive coordinator, catching fire and, having a really good offense, like a Ben Johnson in Detroit situation. I love Dan Campbell, and Dan Campbell's exactly the type of guy that the Jets would love to have at this stage. That is a culture changer right there. However, when Ben Johnson leaves, that offense is going to take a significant step back. I don't think that is a hot take to say. It's going to happen. Now, I'm not saying that Dan Campbell's a Ben Johnson merchant by any means. I think he's clearly done a lot of great things at that organization beyond what Ben Johnson has done. But the advantage of having a guy like that, like a Matt LaFleur in Green Bay, is you don't have to worry about Matt LaFleur leaving and the offense taking a step back. It's a lot easier to replace defensive coaches, defensive coordinators, than it is great offensive coordinators. So that's why I would skew more towards hiring an offensive coach. So I would rather a Ben Johnson versus an Aaron Glenn. But if you're going to hire a defensive guy,
though, Dan Quinn's doing great in Washington. Raheem Morris is doing great in Atlanta.
He is, but
DeMeco Ryans in Houston.
And DeMeco Ryans, a lot of that is because Bobby Slowick has done a great job. Dan Quinn is a lot of that is because Cliff Kingsbury is doing a phenomenal job.
Ryans is because they hit on Stroud. That's why.
And Bobby Slowick's done a really good job at that offense. I mean, it wasn't just Stroud. And it's also, again, QB development isn't black and white. It's Stroud is great, partially because Bobby Slowick is great. Bobby Slowick is great, partially because CJ Stroud is great. It's all hand in hand. It all works together. I would look at, if you look at the top defensive coaches around the league, the coaches that we all assume or we all classify as the top defensive coaches, almost all of them are currently paired with a really good offensive coordinator. That's just the reality of the situation. So and again, that's not saying if they hired Aaron Glenn, I'd be against it. I just think it's an advantage to have, if you're going to hire somebody without head coaching experience. This is different. If you hire like a Mike Vrabel, that is obviously top choice over anybody else you're hiring, in my opinion. But if you're going to hire somebody without any head coaching experience, I would prefer an offensive guy versus a defensive guy. Just as a general statement. That doesn't mean I prefer every offensive guy versus every. I wouldn't prefer them hiring Shane Waldron as their head coach over Aaron Glenn, obviously. But yeah, that's just as a general rule. So in totality, no, the Jets should not hire Rex Ryan, but I would love a Rex Ryan type, be it a Mike Vrabel, be it whoever, somebody who can come in and change that culture.
AJ, what would we think of Kingsbury as a head coaching candidate? I would love it.
Yeah, I'd be all for it.
I thought that he got such a raw deal in Arizona. He took them. They had the number one pick when he took that job. In 3 years, they were in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And then he got fired at the end of that year because Kyler Murray got hurt. And he was playing Trace McSorley in an air raid offense. No wonder he didn't win games. Yep. And then Washington looks great with Jane Daniels. So Kingsbury, a guy who I remember when they were hiring for Saleh. I remember for a while the rumor was Saleh was going to go to the Lions. That was the rumor. And Kingsbury interviewed with the Jets, and I think he was he had a really legitimate interest and a really legitimate chance to get that job before they ended up with Saleh. I'd be very in on Kingsbury.
Same. He doesn't have the same cultural background as like a Mike Vrabel, where it's like, okay, he's coming in and changing the culture, again, not to keep using that buzzword, but has head coaching experience, is currently doing a fantastic job in Washington, and is a big reason that Jaden Daniels has looked as good as he has, and that entire offense has, I mean, they were one of the worst offenses in football last year. Now they're one of the best, like top 5 in the league, I believe. And yeah, part of that's Jaden Daniels, but part of that is also the guy running the show, which is Cliff Kingsbury. So yeah, I don't think Kingsbury would be my absolute top option. But sure, if you're going the offensive coach route, if you're going, I'd probably rather him maybe over Ben Johnson. It'd be about the same for me because at least Kingsbury has been a head coach, and I've seen it work to a degree with Kingsbury, although obviously he's had his shortcomings too.
And I mentioned this before. Part of me, just to be contrarian, is like, is everybody and every organization just assumes Ben Johnson is going to be like the hire that fixes everything?
Right.
Part of me is like, okay, maybe what if he doesn't?
Right. We don't know that. He's still an unknown. Obviously, when you hire somebody like Ben Johnson, the ceiling is high, but it's not a guarantee at all you're hitting that ceiling. It's a very low, or it's a lower floor than like a Mike Vrabel. If you were to bring in a Mike Vrabel, the floor is a lot higher with him. You know that he's at least a good NFL head coach, whereas you don't know that obviously with Ben Johnson. The ceiling is very high with a hire like that.
Let's talk trades.
Let's do it.
We thought we'd be talking about acquisitions the Jets could make to help them in their pursuit of a championship this year. And now we're talking about, are they going to make any sell-off moves? Because right now, as we mentioned before, though, the concerning part with where the Jets are is Joe Douglas is not going to be bad next year, and I think he knows that. So because of that, there is no motivation for him to sell some of their players and get fifth-round picks in exchange, because he's not going to be able to use them. So that puts the Jets in a really awkward position, almost to a point where you'd think, like, all right, maybe you just can him now, because he's not going to be, unless it's just out of the goodness of his heart, he does the move you should make as a GM. Like, there's no point for him to hoard future assets. He's going to be gone. But let's say they do make trades anyway. If I'm looking at the Jets right now, I think there's one move they have to make. And there's one move that I don't think they can make, but they should. And I'm not even putting Devontae Adams in there yet, because I think, honestly, just because of the Aaron Devontae connection, I think they'll just ride it out for this year. Aaron tries to get Devontae's numbers up, and then Devontae goes to maybe like Kansas City next year where he can contend. That's what I think happens. Looking at the Jets right now, the one thing they absolutely have to do is trade Mike Williams.
Yeah, they will do that.
That's absolute. And again, we like the Mike Williams signing. I think he still has some juice left in the tank. We know that this offense sucks and the scheme sucks. For whatever reason, Mike Williams doesn't fit in it. He doesn't click with Aaron Rodgers. And that's enough to get. I still think the Jets could get maybe like a 5th-round pick for him. I wouldn't be surprised.
Dude,
maybe a 6th.
Honestly, after that Deontay Johnson trade, I think you're looking at best a pick swap. Like I honestly don't.
Well, a pick swap in that range, I think, is the.
I think
the Jets maybe move up, 10 spots or 15 spots in the order.
Yeah, that's more likely to me, which is whatever, I guess. Deontay Johnson is better than Mike Williams at this stage, or at least has done more this year than Williams.
The thing that I guess the Jets could use is, if you look at the top receivers right now that are available, this is, I guess, even if you take out Christian Kirk, who's out for the year with a broken collarbone, he was like a hot trade target. I feel like there's very few like X receivers, 6'4", go up and get it guys. I feel like Williams is kind of the only one. Hopkins, not the only one, maybe the best one.
Yeah, Hopkins was, and then he got traded.
Yeah, Hopkins, and even then, Hopkins, I think, is more like an all-around guy than like Mike Williams, who's this big, giant, vertical guy.
Sure.
So I think looking at how scarce the market is for Mike Williams clones, I think teams who need a Mike Williams might be more inclined to give a higher-up day 3 pick. It's not going to be a great haul, considering his contract and what he's shown this year, but you got to get him out of here. It does him no good. It does the team no good to keep him as the wide receiver 4 on a team that doesn't throw the ball a lot.
Yeah, I agree. And on the point of, we're going to talk about guys the Jets probably should trade. I don't know if they will, because like Mike, you were saying, Joe Douglas doesn't really have any incentive to trade guys because he is, in theory, still trying to save his job. But I will also point out, and I know I mentioned that on, I believe, the last stream we did after that Patriots game, that the Jets might not trade a lot of guys because they don't have the incentive to do it. Douglas doesn't, but is Joe Douglas even making the decisions anymore? I don't know if he will officially be fired because they can realistically just let his contract expire in the offseason. Remember, he is not under contract in 2025. The Jets can just part ways with him mutually, whatever they decide to call it, if they want to move on. But Woody Johnson might be the guy that steps up and says, all right, here, let me handle these decisions. Let me handle trade negotiations with Mike Williams. Or he might just tell Joe Douglas to do it. He might just say, look, you got to make this decision. You got to trade him. Like, I'm telling you to do it.
Well, then how much of this whole thing is Joe Douglas's fault even?
Well, I think Joe Douglas has mostly run the show up until this season when the Robert Saleh firing happened. I think it's been 90-10 Douglas versus Woody. I think there's been Woody decisions throughout. Maybe like 80-20.
LaFleur was a Woody call, clearly.
Yeah, LaFleur was a Woody call. I think the Jets not bringing in a backup quarterback has been very strongly suggested that was a Woody call, not bringing in a better backup quarterback in 2023. And I also believe the Aaron Rodgers decision, trading for Aaron Rodgers, not that Joe Douglas was against that, but I'm sure that was a Woody Johnson-led decision, that Johnson really wanted that to happen. But other than that, it's not like Woody Johnson was out here signing DJ Reed, or signing Laken Tomlinson or whoever, right? That wasn't Woody. Woody Johnson didn't draft Sauce Gardner or whoever. That was Joe Douglas. But yeah, I think right now it's become pretty clear that Joe Douglas at this stage is more of just a figurehead. So maybe Woody Johnson takes over and he says, all right, look, let's just trade everybody. Let's trade Mike Williams. Let's trade whoever. But at the same time, I just had this conversation on Twitter today. If it was up to me right now, I would trade Davante Adams. If it was up to me, I'd trade Hassan Reddick. I would trade anybody who I don't think is going to be back with the organization next year. Now, Davante Adams might be back in 2025. I think we've kind of been treating it as a formality a little too much that the Jets won't run it back with Rodgers and Adams next year, because I think there's absolutely a scenario that Woody Johnson decides to do that, because that will be a Woody Johnson decision. As much as
an attractive coaching spot that is. You can't run your scheme or pick your quarterback.
As much as I am wholeheartedly against that as at this stage of running it back with Rodgers and Adams next year, Woody Johnson is going to be the guy making that call, because there isn't going to be a head coach and GM even here probably to make that call. So that will be Woody Johnson deciding, okay, we're going to run it back with these guys. Hey, any head coach that wants to come here, just know 2025 is all in on Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams. Now, I've seen nothing from them this season that makes me think that Rodgers and Adams can be core pieces of a championship contending team in 2025. I would rather just, at this stage, rip off the Band-Aid and start fresh with a new GM and a new head coach. You don't tie yourself to Rodgers and Adams. That's what I would rather do. But I think it's a very real possibility that they're both on the roster in 2025, that they run it back with them. So I don't think they're going to, I'm confident they're not going to trade Davante Adams for that reason, and because I don't think Woody Johnson would like to admit defeat on that trade within 3 weeks of making that trade. But that's somebody that I would probably throw out there. Mike Williams is an obvious one. One guy who I think, if they are officially punting on 2024, which if they lose on Thursday, if they lose tomorrow night, they'll be 2-7. They'd have to realistically.
They'd have the number 3 pick, by the way, and could have the number 2 pick because Tennessee plays New England this week.
Boom, there you go. Honestly, that's a good game for the Jets. One of those teams has to win. But yeah, realistically, it'll be 2-7. They would have to win out to guarantee themselves a playoff spot. And they'd have to lose one more game to maybe try and sneak in at 9-8, which is not a guarantee at all. So yeah, they should punt on the season if they lose tomorrow night. One guy who makes sense if you're officially punting in 2024, because I am confident he won't be back in 2025, is DJ Reed.
Yes.
I love DJ Reed as a player. He's a fantastic player, and he's honestly developed into a really, really important leader on this team. I feel like he's always the guy who says the right thing in those press conferences too. And, he's been a great servant to the team, and he's honestly maybe having his best season as well with the Jets. He's not going to be back in 2025. You're going to pay Sauce Gardner. I know we don't have to get into the discourse around Sauce Gardner because it's kind of crazy.
He's going to get $25 million a year. You're going to like it, so shut up.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen that discourse over the last day or two on social media with Sauce Gardner, but holy
like he's bad now or what?
Yeah, the fact that people think he's bad and that the Jets should trade him, and he's actually just not.
Come on.
People
are bored. That's what it is.
Right. Well, people
They're
are
angry and bored, which is a dangerous combination.
People are mad at the Jets, and they're taking it out on Sauce Gardner because he tweets too much and he can't tackle. That's why. We can have a nuanced discussion about Sauce Gardner's limitations as a player and where he needs to improve and how he's definitely having a down year by his absurd historic standards. But what we're not going to do is say that he's bad at football and that the Jets should trade him, because
Sauce is 24. Oh yeah, finished product. Okay.
He's 20. He's also allowed the 8th fewest catches this year, if anyone was wondering what a down year for Sauce Gardner looks like. Obviously, that doesn't tell the whole story. I'm not an idiot. I watch the games. I see he's a terrible tackler. I understand he has a lack of ball skills. I understand all of that. He's still a fantastic player who has historically had the best start to a career over the first 2 years of any cornerback in NFL history. Anyway, that's not the point I'm making here.
Revis also didn't make 12 first-team All-Pro teams.
Yeah,
It happens.
exactly. The Jets will extend Sauce Gardner. They just extended Michael Carter. They have young guys on the roster that they like in Quantez Figures and Jark Bernard Converse. It makes total sense for them to move on from DJ Reed in the offseason. Why not do it sooner? Why not recoup any kind of an asset for him? Because I guess it depends on a couple of things. If the Jets are going to spend in the offseason, then maybe you hold on to him and try and get a comp pick. Right, that's because you're probably not going to get much for half a year rental of DJ Reed at this stage, unless because unfortunately, for as great as he is, I don't think his value will be super high because he is 29, 30 years old, and he's an undersized corner. Guys like that don't tend to age particularly well, and I think that will hurt his value, even though he's playing at a high level. Plus, he just doesn't have the name value that other guys do. He's been playing next to Sauce Gardner, which teams will use that to discredit him too. So I don't think his value will be super high. If you plan to spend this offseason and you think you're going to spend more than you lose, then you could trade him now. But if you're not going to spend a lot in the offseason, maybe you just hold on to him and get a comp pick in 2026.
I mean, there are teams out there. I look at Tampa Bay. I look at Baltimore. I think they could easily swing a
definitely
DJ Reed trade. The trade I want to see happen the most. It's probably not going to happen, but just what I would like to see. My own wishful thinking would be Hassan Reddick. Now,
not gonna happen
because there's no chance he sticks around for
virtually none.
Yeah, I think he's done with the Jets.
Yeah, and the Jets are probably done with him.
And they're done with him. Looking at you, whenever you make a trade, if they trade DJ Reed, even though most of this locker room is not going to be here next year, you still have to weigh how it's going to play in the locker room when you make deals like that. If you trade away, a veteran, everybody probably likes DJ Reed. He's a good guy. You got to consider those optics, unless you're the Colts recently. They didn't. So, you got to consider things like that.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody – find me a guy on this team that will be pissed at the Jets for trading Hassan Reddick. In fact, find me a guy in this team, honestly, at this point, who's neutral.
Hassan Reddick wouldn't even be pissed. Nobody in that locker room would be pissed.
If the Jets were – not even if they were winning, even if they were 4-3, I bet people would be pissed about trading Reddick. Now, or not at least neutral on Reddick, rather, after the whole thing. Because all right, you came back, we're still pushing for the playoffs or whatever. I guarantee you there's probably some guys in the locker room who are like, oh, now you come back? We could have used you in any of those 5 games we lost beforehand. We could have used you then, Hassan. I guarantee you there's still some of that there. He doesn't want to be here. The Jets probably don't want him here because he's not committed to them. That was Joe Douglas's whole reason why he wouldn't pay Reddick. It wasn't even necessarily the money. It was you won't show that you're committed because you won't show up. That was allegedly that's what's been out in the media. That's the listed reason for why he hasn't done that. But nobody's happy. This got fouled up too quickly. It didn't work. Maybe some team flips you something for him. I don't know. There's not that many great pass rushers out there that are going to be available on the trade market. And for all of Hassan Reddick's faults, he can still rush the passer. I know he's still ramping up, and that New England game probably isn't the best showcase of his talent. But I'm just so done with him, especially after no commenting on my whole. Come on, that's pathetic. You knew guys were going to ask you about it. The ego on this guy, and the ego for doing nothing, the ego for losing money. It'd be one thing if he bullied the Jets and got his deal, and he's like, "Yeah, I won my negotiation with Joe Douglas." You lost a bunch of money. You're just trying to recoup that now.
I think he's embarrassed, honestly. I think he's objectively embarrassed about how the situation was handled and how
be a man and talk about it. Don't hide and say no comment. That's more embarrassing.
He's not gonna. Look, and again, we're very pro player with this stuff, and I'm not gonna. I don't know Hassan Reddick the person. I'm not gonna sit here and say terrible things about him as a person, but I will say that it's very embarrassing the way that the situation has been handled on his part, and I'm sure he also feels embarrassed.
He probably ruined his career.
Very possible. We'll see.
Nobody's paying him.
I agree, and his value is so low at this point. I would trade him because if we're looking objectively right now, Hassan Reddick is almost definitely not going to be on the Jets roster in 2025. Even if they run it back with Rodgers and Adams, I do not see many realities in which Hassan Reddick plays his way onto the roster in 2025, is able to endear himself to Woody Johnson in the new regime enough to keep him around and give him a new contract as well, which would also be required. I don't see that happening. So if you know that that's the case, why not trade him? Why not trade him? You know,
I want to get to a couple comments really quick though from Gregory Freeman about Reddick. He says, "How about Reddick knew something we didn't know?"
What do you mean? What does that mean? What do you mean?
But what, like he sensed that the Jets were going to be a powder keg and like backed out immediately.
Oh, like, I mean, he cost himself millions. He should have just held in. Right?
Yeah, then just show up and say my hamstring hurts.
Yeah, why would he cost himself like $10 million?
Even if you wanted to be there and you just wanted to get paid, just hey, my hamstring hurts. Okay, and then none of this happens. And then Gregory again, if Nick Bosa's career ain't ruined, his ain't ruined. This is and Chris Jones too. The difference though is
I don't know if he's referring to Nick Bosa's contract holdout.
Okay, now
I took that as referring to something else.
Yes, okay. Now
I understand.
I know what he's referring to. Let's say hypothetically it's about the contract holdout. And Chris Jones too. I'll lump Chris Jones in.
Sure.
Those guys are both miles better than Hassan Reddick as players. Chris Jones missed what, one game?
He missed 1 week. Yeah, he missed 1 week.
I don't think Nick Bosa missed any games.
Mm.
And they got top of the line deals because they were young in their prime. That was their first contract.
Their holdouts worked. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
Their
honestly,
holdouts
that first
worked.
game, that was last year. The Chiefs lost to the Lions, and they're like, "Oh man, we need Chris Jones to win a championship." Jets never really had that thought with Reddick, so he played himself.
Yeah,
he played himself.
Chris Jones and Nick Bosa were and are two of the best players at their respective positions in the entire NFL. I would say Chris Jones might be the best D tackle. Him and Dexter Lawrence. Nick Bosa is a top 5 edge rusher, maybe top 3. They're both phenomenal players who had many teams willing to.
He's talking about toxicity is his main thing.
Yeah, and that's, I think, referring to the recent situation involving.
If you can ball, all that shakes out.
That's ultimately what it is. Yeah, we don't unfortunately got to get into that, especially with election day. Especially election day in 6 days. Also trade deadline. That's the most important thing happening on that day. Definitely, the future of the Jets is more important than the future of the country. But yeah, I mean that's Nick Bosa's and Chris Jones' contracts worked. That's their holdouts worked. That's the ultimate reality of it. And there were a lot of teams willing to give them those contracts if the Chiefs and 49ers did not want to. Hassan Reddick, that was not the case. We know this. We've talked about this a lot.
You want to go talk Thursday Night Football?
Yeah, let's talk Thursday. Let's talk this Halloween scare fest tomorrow. That is Jets versus Texans.
I'm gonna borrow another line from my guy Jay Gasman.
Sure.
He said this like 3 times in 10 minutes, so I think he thinks he had some golden line here. But he said there's gonna be a lot of fans dressed up as empty seats.
Nice. That is good. Okay. I do like that. That is
a good one. He's really trying to get that to work.
There's gonna be a lot of Jets players.
You're the man. But
there's gonna be a lot of Jets players dressed up as football players too.
But a lot of dudes dressed up as Jets football players. Like,
yeah,
hey,
a lot of
72 out there. He's
a lot of random guys on the field that are dressed up as football players, actually giving a shit.
Looking at the Texans, here's what infuriates me about the Texans, and it's hard to say that because I really like the Texans. I think C.J. Stroud's cool. I think DeMeco Ryans is a really good head coach. The thing that infuriates me about the Texans is, you ever hear, parallel universe? No, I'm sorry, Bizarro, like Superman.
Sure, yeah, Bizarro, yeah.
Bizarro world where they say goodbye when they enter places.
Yep.
Like, the Jets are the Bizarro version of the Texans.
Yes, they are.
In that, these two teams, it's hard to if you were to say which team was more down in the dumps, the Jets after they fired Gase in the year where they missed it out on Trevor Lawrence, or the Texans the year, the Lovie Smith, David Culley times, where Jack Easterby, who was basically like if they made Jimmy Swaggart the GM, like that's it's hard to say which one is more down in the dumps. So what do both teams do? Both teams, they hire the defensive coordinator of the San Francisco 49ers. They make the passing game coordinator their offensive coordinator. They take him with them. And then they use the number 2 pick on a quarterback with crazy college numbers. The Jets screwed it up so badly, it probably set them back for a half decade, and then they had to do this whole Aaron Rodgers song and dance because of it. The Texans instantly worked out perfectly.
Yep.
That's why I was so, in defense of Saleh, especially last year. I think this year some of the more flaws came out, but last year especially when he didn't have Rodgers. The Texans and the Jets are built the exact same way. They run the exact same defense. That's why they were so good against C.J. Stroud last year, because it's the same offense and the same defense. One got Zach Wilson, one got C.J. Stroud. One might pick in the top 5 again, another quarterback. One has their quarterback for the next 10 years set in stone.
Mm-hmm.
That's what pisses me off about him, because it's like the Jets should be the Texans. If Saleh worked out, they would be the Texans right now. Instead, they're still the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, it goes even beyond that too. Like beyond obviously Saleh and DeMeco Ryans, and both being former 49ers defensive coordinators, both getting a quarterback second overall. The 49ers or the Jets hired Mike LaFleur, who was the passing game coordinator under Kyle Shanahan. The Texans hired Bobby Slowick, who was the passing game coordinator under Kyle Shanahan. They also both drafted star cornerbacks with the 3rd and 4th overall picks.
Stingley and Sauce,
draft.
And Sauce is better, and they still,
And Sauce is arguably better. I mean, he has been for the first 2 years. Debate this year, but they're both fantastic players. They have modeled their rebuilds in the exact same way, pretty much, like virtually the exact same way. Both teams also ended up drafting and developing a star receiver of their own in Nico Collins versus Garrett Wilson. I think Nico Collins showed this year he's probably better than Garrett Wilson. But
they trade for a star, Stephon Diggs, who is out for the year with an ACL. That really sucks for Stephon Diggs, because he voided the last 3 years of his contract to get a payday this year. Then this happens.
Yeah,
Houston gets Stephon Diggs, it works. Jets get Devontae Adams.
Extraordinarily similar rebuilds, to the point where even if you look at the Texans defense right now, just comparing them schematically, it's still so similar to what the Jets do. Not just that, personnel wise. I mean, they went out and they got Foley Fatukasi. Neville Hewitt is there. Remember Delshon Phillips? He's on that team right now.
Blake Cashman was there before this year.
Blake Cashman was there. They've had so many former Jets on that defense.
Adrian Amos last year.
Adrian Amos was there as well. They've had so many guys. And that's not a coincidence. It's because they just run very similar schemes. So it's unfortunate to see two organizations basically take the exact same roster building strategy. And one of them has worked out tremendously, about as well as it could have. And the other one worked out about as poorly as it could have with the Jets. So you're right. You're right on. That's a very apt comparison. And unfortunately, we're not going to see that again this year. But hey, man, the Jets won 30-6 last year. Zach Wilson played literally, I think, the best game of his entire career against this team last year. Looking at the all-time series, I was looking at that. The Jets have actually won 7 of 10 against the Texans. I believe the Texans are one of 4 or 5 teams in the NFL that the Jets have an all-time winning record against.
Wow.
I think it's only about 5 NFL.
What are they, the Jaguars? Maybe I'm thinking of the young teams.
Yeah, it's all the younger teams, because historically
Jaguars, Titans,
probably the Jags as well. Actually, I should look that up. I saw that stat a while ago, probably like a year ago, so it might have changed by now. But yeah, the Texans are one of those teams. The Texans have not beaten the Jets, I think, since 2018, which was Deshaun Watson's second year in Houston. But yeah, the Jets found a way to beat them last year. It says a lot that I have less faith in them going into this game than I actually did going into last year's game against Texans, even though they ended up winning that game. I remember the mindset going into that game was, oh, well, they're clearly a significantly inferior team. Going into the year, I remember Jets fans looking at that game and being like, oh, hey, this could be a pretty easy matchup. And by the time it got to that game, it was like, oh, well, this is an easy loss. This is an obvious L. And then sure enough, they won 30-6. This year, I have even less confidence, which is crazy to say considering Aaron Rodgers is their quarterback and not Zach Wilson.
And less confidence, too. Like, Houston is 6-2.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're rolling right now because Diggs is hurt, obviously. Nico Collins was hurt.
He still is. He's missing.
He's missing this week. The tackles, they have good. It's the opposite of the Jets. The Jets have a good interior and the tackles are bad. Mm-hmm. The Texans have good tackles in Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard.
Yep.
Kenyon Green, their top 15 pick, just got benched. They might trade him, according to Jeremy Fowler. They're looking into trading him. That's not a great interior offensive line. Like, the defense, it's weird because they either have amazing games or they get killed. Mm-hmm. Like, they either have guys go 10 of 30 or they get killed. They're a weird helter-skelter team. So, in theory, the Jets should be, especially against a team that's going to run the exact same scheme they do, or at least did when Saleh was there. In theory, a lot of things should be pointing up for him here, but instead, things are pointing down. The thing I'm most concerned about, too, though, is finally, last year they couldn't run the ball. Now they can. I don't know what happened to Joe Mixon because he was bad that last year with the Bengals. He looks reborn. Even with the bad offensive line, with all the injuries. I mean, Leonard Taylor, we love him. He's probably going to start. Mixon's probably going to get another 100-yard game. Like, they don't need Stroud to be Superman. So this is going to be a 2-7 game, and this could have been a loss for the Jets. Even if everything went really well and they were rolling, I still might pick the Texans in this game. I just really like how they're built, which sucks because the Jets tried to be the exact same thing. That's why we liked all the processes that they did. Mm-hmm. And then just every time the Texans did a move, it came up the right side, and the Jets got screwed.
I imagine the Texans' game plan in this game is not going to be to lean on C.J. Stroud. They watched that tape from last year. It's the same coaching staff. It's the same. It's a different defense, but relatively the same defense that C.J. Stroud threw, I believe, 91 yards against.
And got concussed against.
Got concussed, averaged 4 yards per. He completed 10 passes in that game and threw 91 yards, averaged 4 yards per attempt in that game last year. On top of that, they don't have Nico Collins. He's out at least another week. I believe he's supposed to come back week 10. He will not play tomorrow. They don't have Stephon Diggs anymore, just tore his ACL. So they're going to be rolling out a wide receiver trio of Tank Dell, John Mechie, and Xavier Hutchinson. Maybe some old man Robert Woods sprinkled in as well.
John Mechie went to Petty, so boo, John Mechie.
I don't know what
Shout out John Mechie for his recovery, but he also went to Petty.
Yeah, come on, man. You are getting on a cancer survivor here? Dude, what the hell? What's wrong with you?
He was a Petty Falcon, and I'm a Pennington. Well, at the time, we were the Red Raiders. Now we're the Red Hawks. And those two, oil and water, those two. But shout out John Mechie for recovering, dude.
It took me a second to realize you were talking about high school football and not former Jets quarterback Bryce Petty. I was like, he went to Bryce Petty's house?
Wow.
What happened there? I don't know. I don't know Jersey. I am a Long Island dude, man. I don't know Jersey
that
football.
Cayenne pepper's messing your brain up.
It is. It's getting. I'm starting to have some weird conspiracy beliefs. I don't know what's going on, and I think the Aaron Rodgers thing's kicking in.
Brandon Hallam has a good point, though, Justin, to segue into it, though. Texans are undefeated when they have a 100-yard rush.
Exactly. And they are going – that's a great stat, Brandon. And they are going to lean on Joe Mixon in this game. And every time a team is trying to lean on their running game against the Jets, it has worked because this Jets defense is not built to stop the run. Plus, they're already beat up as well. I mean, they're down their top 3 safeties. Looks like that's going to be the case again on Thursday night. They don't have C.J. Mosley, who's now dealing with a neck injury. They're beat up on that defense, and they're already not a good run defending team to begin with. They're going to lean on Joe Mixon in this game. I expect that it's going to work. And even though the Jets have their top 3 corners back, Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, and Michael Carter are playing, I really don't think it's going to matter too much because, cool, Sauce Gardner's going to shut down Xavier Hutchinson. Amazing, man. Great. That's really going to help the Jets win this game.
I imagine they put him on Tank, maybe.
Tank plays the slot a lot, though. So I bet Tank will be with Michael Carter. You know, they're not going to.
That'd be a fun matchup.
Well, let's be real. They're not going to have Sauce travel anyway. I actually don't know who lines up normally on Sauce's side for that team. It's hard to even. I think it
was Diggs, which honestly,
yeah,
you don't want it to happen this way. But for a while, like Diggs was like the Sauce's boogeyman. Like he was the guy that even when Sauce was all pro Sauce,
that's
the first team all pro Sauce, he had the most trouble with him at anybody.
Yeah,
him and Calvin Ridley, those were his 2 nemesis. Nemesis?
Nemesi.
I
don't know. No, it's not. The Jets have actually, looking at the last 3 weeks, this has kind of got a little under the radar. They've actually had Sauce moving around quite a bit. In week 7, in that Steelers game, he played more snaps at right cornerback than left cornerback. That's got to be the first time in his career that's ever happened. So I guess they had him following Pickens a lot in that game. It didn't seem like it, though.
I was about to say, was it like every time that Sauce wasn't on Pickens, they threw it up to him?
I don't know. Yeah, because he definitely was not following Pickens because Pickens had multiple catches.
I remember watching that game. I don't remember ever seeing Pickens get a catch on Sauce.
No, I don't think he did. But they've been moving him around a little bit. Not that it really matters this week, but yeah, I believe it would be John Mechie would be the guy matched up. But again, that's not going to determine the game. The game will be determined in the trenches, as it often is. That's very simplistic analysis, but it often is true. And unfortunately, I don't trust the Jets to win the battle in the trenches on either side of the ball because their interior pass rush, maybe it'll be another good Quinnen Williams game. I mean, Quinnen is think he has 13 pressures over the last 3 weeks. He's picked it up after a pretty slow start to the season. He's been very good. They just don't have much else out there interior-wise. Javon Kinlaw is fine, if not bad. He is whatever. Leonard Taylor.
Totally average. Totally
yeah,
average.
I'd say below average, honestly. I'd like to see Leonard Taylor get more snaps because he at least has some pass rush juice and can't defend the run, but neither can Javon Kinlaw, so who cares? But again, we do this analysis every single week, Mike, and you and I both know it doesn't matter. They're going to lose because Hassan Reddick's going to line up offsides or something like that. Who the hell knows, man?
Sharon McLean became a member. Thank you, Sharon McLean, for that.
Thank you so much, Sharon.
Let's go, Sharon. And to honor Sharon, we will make predictions.
Okay. Hey, if we get one more member before the end of the show, I will take another sip of the cayenne pepper water. For those who missed the beginning, I will take another. I can't promise.
99 cents can buy Justin's pain here.
Literally 99 cents. Yeah, I mean, again, we appreciate everybody tuning in and watching. But if you want to tune in and support us in one more way, 99 cents. I'll take another sip. You can buy my discomfort. Okay, just so you know. For now, at least. For now. Offers only on the table until we end the show.
Predictions. I'm gonna say Texans. This is gonna be tough, but Texans 30, Jets 17.
Okay.
And I don't think Stroud's even gonna have an amazing game. I just think they have no answer for Mixon. And it's not necessarily even their fault anymore. I just don't think they have the personnel. And it's weird to say that, but like they're so beat up. There's no Mosley. The line was bad as it is. Now it's even worse as injuries have taken over. The secondary's beat up. And then Aaron Rodgers, like the whole thing with Rodgers in the offense has been, well, he can't move him around a lot. Well, Will Anderson is not going to take it easy on him. He's becoming an all-pro level star. They got Jalen Pitre. They got Stingley. They got Kalen Bullock. That's a hell of a secondary. I don't feel any confidence in anything the Jets are really going to cook up here. I think they're going to try, and I think they're going to keep it close for a little bit, and then something stupid will happen, and they're going to fling the ball backwards, and Texans will run it back for a touchdown, and then the dam will break. Because one thing that I know about this Jets team more than any other, I've never seen a team just go with this much quit in them. Anytime anything goes wrong, they all just lay down and die. And I think more of the same is going to happen here.
All right, you ready for my take, Mike?
Yes.
For what's going to happen? I think the Jets are going to play one of their best games of the year. And I think they're still going to lose. I think I'll say final score 27-24. I think the Jets keep it very close. I think the offense looked its best that it has in weeks. I don't know what it is. I don't know why I have that optimism. Maybe it is the cayenne pepper water getting to my head. Maybe the cayenne pepper water works on Aaron Rodgers. I think Rodgers is going to play great. The last time the Jets had a short week, that was Rodgers' best game of the year against the Patriots on Thursday Night Football. The Jets will be doing that again. They're going in Thursday Night Football. Now Rodgers is a little bit more banged up, but
Sharon, of course, adds in if we stop the run somehow, we have a chance. I mean, yeah, but they can't. We would love to stop the run.
AJ's got a similar
to try to stop the run.
AJ's got a similar prediction here. He said Texans 24-21. Yeah, I'm saying 27-24. I think the Jets make a field goal this week. That's my hot prediction, which is different than I predicted in the past.
How funny would it be if they miss like 2 more kicks?
They miss everything. Well, the good thing is they signed 2 kickers. So you know what they should? They should elevate both of them. They should use both game day elevations on their kickers and just have them alternate. If the first guy misses, throw in the second guy. If he misses 2, go back to the first guy. That's
what a lot of colleges used to do, where they used to have a short kicker and a long kicker. So, over 40 yards, they would bring in this guy, and under 40, they'd go with this other guy.
I'm pretty sure Schrader has the longest field goal in Notre Dame football history. Fun fact. So I believe Schrader is the guy with the long leg here. Not that Patterson does. I think Patterson's only made it from 53. Is his longest in his NFL career. Some fun kicker facts here at the end. But yeah, I'll say 27-24. Jets play a fantastic game, and everybody wants to be optimistic because that they played really well and they lost to a great team. Unfortunately, we won't be able to be optimistic because they'll be 2-7, and the close loss to a good team won't matter when they just lost to the Patriots the previous week. So that'll be my prediction. The Jets will find a new way to create pessimism and almost drag their fans back in, almost bring us back in, but ultimately let them down in the end. If I know anything about the Jets, that's what will happen. Garrett says 17-10 Jets. I appreciate the optimism, buddy. I hope the
How are
Jets,
they going to hold C.J. Stroud to 10 points with this defense?
I'd be very surprised. But look, who knows, man? We didn't think 30-6 last year, so who the hell knows?
And I liked what Marcelo Cabrera said. They're going to win the next 4 and then lose to the Dolphins and the Jaguars.
That also
would happen with the Jets.
But believe, don't get me wrong. I think the Jets are going on a run at some point this season. I just think by the time they do it, it'll be too late.
I don't think they're going to go 2-15.
No, they're gonna win another 5 games. I think they're winning 7 games this year. That'll be my final prediction. I still think I'm gonna say 6 or 7. I'm gonna say 6 or 7 wins. I'll hedge my bets here because they are in turmoil right now, and I think
they're gonna pick 11th again in the order.
Exactly. That's ultimately what's going to happen. They're too talented. They'll eventually start winning some games when it doesn't matter. And maybe they'll win enough. Maybe Rodgers and Adams will look just good enough for Woody Johnson to want to run it back with them next year. Maybe that will happen because that's just be a very Jets thing to happen. Brian made it just in time. He says 28-16 Texans. Sounds about right. 28-16 Texans. Yeah.
Thank you guys for tuning into the Jet Press podcast. If you like this show, you can subscribe at the Jet Press. And as of today, you can now join. Just hit that little join icon right next to where subscribe is on the YouTube channel. You can become a Jet Press super fan for just 99 cents a month. And all of your comments in chat will get prioritized. They'll end up on the screen over on YouTube, and we will read them. 99 cents is all it takes. You can support us, help us make more content, and help buy alcohol so that we could kill our brains and not remember this 2024 season. That's how. Is
that the plan?
Support the show.
Is that what you're going to do with the money, Mike?
Possibly. I don't know.
Okay.
I need to erase memories of this.
Give us money, but don't support Mike's alcoholism, please.
I actually haven't had a drink since last September. So.
Yeah.
But I know I'm lame, but whatever.
That's a month. That's not even that long.
No, going.
Over a year ago.
Yeah, it was my cousin's wedding actually. So. Yeah.
Look at you. All right, don't let Mike fall back into the alcoholism.
No, don't let me relapse here. So thank you for tuning in. You can also find us on all the podcast platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We're on all those platforms. So Justin, with a head full of cayenne pepper, how you feeling? As Sharon has one last prediction: Jets 31-28. Schrader hits a game-winning field goal.
Oh, dude,
that would make me mad because I'd be like, "Well, where is this?"
I know.
Jets 3 weeks ago.
Jets winning a close game because of their kicker. Everyone will be like, "Amazing, great. We could have done that 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago."
Aaron Rodgers is suddenly not, the worst person in the world. Oh, because the kicker made a kick.
Yeah. It's a fair prediction. I do think the Jets are to surprise people this week. But yeah, as for how I'm feeling, I'm feeling all right, man. I'm feeling all right. I'm happy that.
Do you have less pain? Because that's what cayenne is supposed to do.
Emotionally or physically? What are we talking?
Well, all right. Emotionally.
I'm related to the Jets.
Smart ass. Physically.
Related to the Jets. I'm not I'm not talking about my personal life.
Wouldn't it be funny if that was like the cure-all, like that fixed everything?
The cure for
pepper and water.
The cure for depression is warm cayenne pepper water.
It just tastes like Windex.
I've honestly forgotten a little bit of what the taste was, and I'm glad I don't have to taste it again. And I'm going to dump this out after this. But physically, no, I feel the exact same. But I hope it worked for Aaron Rodgers, and I hope he can play well tomorrow night. And I am happy that hopefully this is one of the last primetime games the Jets have to play this year. I know they have another one against the Colts. Hopefully that gets flexed out because I don't think America should be subject to more of this. The Jets on prime time.
With both New York teams, them and Daniel Jones in prime time.
Please stop putting them on prime time, please.
I do think it's funny though. You know how the Jets have fallen?
How's that?
Remember who was calling that Patriots game?
Oh yeah, it was Spiro Deeds and
Spiro Deeds, baby. We're back with our old boy Spiro.
They are back to the D team of CBS. We are back in D team CBS territory. Meanwhile, Washington, Chicago had Tony Romo and Jim Nantz. What a world.
How quickly things change.
Anyway, thank you all for joining us on the show today. You can follow Mike on Twitter at Mike Luciano. Follow me on Twitter, Justin T. Freed. Follow Jet Press at the Jet Press. Download the Jet Press podcast wherever you get your podcast. Check us out on YouTube. Subscribe, hit that notification bell. Also, join as a member. As Mike was saying before, we have launched that. We appreciate all the support. Anybody who's watching, tuning in, we really, really do appreciate it. We stream live every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern time and immediately following every single Jets game, which means we will be live tomorrow night, Thursday night. Thank you all for listening to the Jet Press podcast. I've been Justin Freed. That has been Mike Luciano. See you guys next time.
We'll see you guys after the Texans game, and I don't think our hopes are too high for this one. I'm going to be honest with you.